Evening. My name is David Morgan. I'm Arlington's Environmental Planner and Conservation Agent. The September 18, 2025 public meeting of the Arlington Conservation Commission will be conducted in a remote format consistent with an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, which further extends certain COVID-19 measures regarding remote participation in public meetings until June 30th, 2027. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording may be made publicly available. All meeting materials are available at the link that I will put in the chat in just a moment. Please note that the Zoom chat feature may be used for questions and comments that contribute to the Commission's proceedings, and if it's used otherwise, it may be disabled at the chair's discretion. Public comment period will follow each hearing. The Commission encourages attendees to ask questions, offer comments during the public comment period. Chuck Taroni is our chair. He'll facilitate tonight's meeting. Each vote we take is done with a roll call vote, and we begin with attendance and agenda review. Over to you, Chuck.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's September 18th, 2025, and it's 7:03. The agenda tonight starts out with the administrative review of the minutes of 9/4/25, review correspondence, a discussion on vegetation permit conditions, Elizabeth Island MOU, Sims Conservation Restriction update, a water bodies update, CPA liaison, tree committee liaison. I think that's it. That's all we have. I was going to add an update because me and Susan went to Poets Corner over the weekend. We'll give the commission an update on that also. So I'm going to take attendance now. I'll start with Mike Gildersgame.
Present.
Nathaniel Stevens.
Present.
Susan Chapnick.
Here.
David White.
Here.
David Kaplan. Brian McBride.
I'm here.
And associate member Sarah Alfaro Franco and Eileen Coleman. I don't see them on the screen. So if you're here and I don't see you, just say something, but I'm going to assume they're not here tonight or not here yet. So our administrative, if David, you could put the minutes up from September 4th.
Well, these were taken from Drive. I'm not sure if anybody made direct edits to that document as it was posted, but I'll walk through it all the same. Usual things up front. Took the agenda for item off the discussion segment for that certificate of compliance. Discuss the Elizabeth Island MOU, as we'll do again tonight. Went over the Mystic Street Bridge Amendment request for the water control plan. Delegated that to staff. It's all recorded here. Went through our usual updates. And voted in the affirmative on the amendment for use of glyphosate for Phragmites treatment at Spy Pond. Permissions given. And there was no need to pursue the Mystic Street Bridge amendment because we had decided to handle it otherwise. Brief meeting, just a couple hours. Anybody notice anything outstanding that we should address all here.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of September 4th as edited.
And second,
I'll second.
Susan Chapnick seconds, Mike Gildenstein,
Yes.
David White,
Yes.
Brian McBride,
Yes.
Nathaniel Stevens,
Yes.
Susan Chapnick,
Yes.
and Chuck Teroni says yes. Okay. Moving on, we have correspondence. So when the commission receives correspondence, we post that. We have a correspondence page. If you would like to see what we have, or you can't find something you're looking for, reach out to David Morgan at the office, and he will help facilitate that request.
Chuck,
Discussion items.
Did we receive anything? I didn't see anything in the drive.
We did not. The only thing that came in was Chuck's correspondence from earlier today, which has not gotten posted yet. So we'll
Yeah.
share that as part of the
Okay, thanks.
discussion and put it on screen.
I guess it'd be helpful maybe in the future, just letting us know how many pieces of correspondence came in.
Sure.
Thanks. If any.
Okay. Discussion items. The first discussion item is a vegetation permit condition and certificate of compliance request. And this is with, we were just talking about what correspondence I had. This is when I reached out to DEP and I wanted to find out what they thought about continuing and conditions or holding an order of conditions open until the survivability, whether it's 3 years or 2 years, had been completed. So that's what I received. I apologize that it's late, but I did just receive that, and I think it's pertinent to the discussion tonight. So I think this would start out with David Morgan setting this up and letting us know why we have this in front of us right now, and then we'll get into a discussion about the actual, the actual condition about survivability for vegetation that's either seen or implied as mitigation.
So this is an issue that comes up fairly frequently, that when a project is done, the applicant is actually required to seek a COC per one of our standard conditions, which says that within, I believe it's 30 days of completing the project, or 60 days prior to the expiration of the permit, they need to seek a certificate of compliance. And there are times when the condition, the other standard condition that we have around vegetation, which is that you need to monitor for 3 growing seasons and ensure survivability rate at a certain threshold. There are times when that is in conflict with the standard condition, and also applicants just want to seek a certificate of compliance sooner than that period is over. And very often I have to say, look, thank you for getting everything in order. We're going to have to wait 3 years in order to hear this. Typically, folks don't reach out and say, I would like to file for a certificate of compliance. They do all of the work, prepare it, bring it, expecting to be on the next agenda. And we have to push back and say that this is incomplete because of X condition. So that's frustrating for applicants. It's something that's unexpected, although, just reading the permit would suffice to, inform people about that. And so Jackie and I started to wonder about whether there might be a different way to approach it. And in the current case, there was a COC filed and there was a contract with a landscaper who's going to take care of the property and do the monitoring. Evidence of that contractor having been paid for the work, and also an affidavit that the applicant would ensure that that work was performed. And so this put in our heads, maybe this is a model for, adapting to the circumstances we find ourselves in. We also have a number of points of evidence from different vantage points, especially lawyers, bureaucrats, etc., who have chimed in to say it's illegal to have such a onerous condition, or it's not, or per Chuck's finding from Alicia tonight, it should not hinder the sale of a property because there are established ways of going about that, and we should be informing people about what those options are. So we've received various pieces of information and thought it was appropriate, and Chuck and Susan in particular thought it was appropriate to bring to the full commission for discussion about how to handle this topic, admitting that this is a very important criterion for projects. We don't want to walk away from permits when there are significant ecological concerns to doing so. And so it's in that spirit that we raised the question with the full commission, and that's more or less the scope of it. See a bunch of hands up, so maybe we should.
Sure. Yeah, I think that Brian McBride had his hand up first.
Yeah, just a technical question. Do we put a lien on the property? Is it like a registered document?
I mean, the difficulty is exactly what you're getting at there, though, because my understanding, which I think I probably need to correct, was that the certificate of compliance was effectively holding up the title, and that would prevent sale of the property. I mean, there have been numerous people who have come through this office in the past 3-4 years who have said that and wanted to seek a certificate of compliance for that reason. I'm getting advice from other corners that that is not the case, and there's nothing that is in effect like a lien that a hold, let's say, on the property pertinent to an order of conditions. So I hope that
Cloudy.
yeah, exactly, it's cloudy. Yeah.
Moving on to Nathaniel Stevens.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's not technical. I mean, it's not a lien per se. I think we think of like a lien, a mortgage lien. But it certainly does. I think some closing attorneys would argue that it has a cloud on the title. So the title's not, as they say, marketable. In my recollection, we've had this disagreement among closing attorneys, I think, for years, even back to Corey. Corey Beckwith, our prior administrator, used to issue what Alicia is referring to as these comfort letters, which essentially they for those of you familiar with commercial real estate, they're kind of like an estoppel certificate, where essentially you're saying, everything looks to be in order and all that needs to be done is X, Y, and Z for that. And that usually satisfies people. And Corey has had attorneys yell at her and scream at her. And I'm sorry for, that's for David and Jackie, that's going to be part of the job, where people, of course, come in at the last minute and expect that this can be done overnight, or that they're going to get what they want. And unfortunately, I think we held the line, Corey held the line pretty well on that and just bit her tongue and went through it and said, best I can do is offer you a comfort letter, but until that mitigation planting is proven to be successful, there's no full compliance with the permit. So I'm in favor of doing that and not issuing any partial certificates of compliance.
Yeah, so part of the letter was that, I'm the administrator in the town of Reading, and I don't know why it comes up a lot here in Reading, in Arlington, but it doesn't come up much, and we've held some for 5 years, and then I was trying to think about this today, and we do have a lot of repeat builders and lawyers that come through. And so maybe they just had their go with the commission one time and understood that that's just how it's going to be. But in my opinion, they've all been resolved, and the commission has kept their condition, and inspected the planting or whatever it may be, in as the condition that's in the order of condition laid out. Alicia Galen from DEP made a great point. She said that the owners and the applicants the applicant has an opportunity to appeal the order of conditions when it was originally, approved. And that didn't happen. So I guess the same thing would go with someone who would buy a piece of property with an order of condition on it. It's just something that helps us understand that there were an opportunity not to get into this situation. So with that, I'm not going to talk anymore at this point, but Susan Chapnick, I'm going to call on you.
Thanks, Chuck. So I agree with Nathaniel. I like the idea of a comfort letter. I didn't realize we used to send those out. So that's good to know. And I am against partial COCs. We had a big discussion about partial COCs a year or so ago, and they don't work out for the commission. It's hard to follow them. We things don't happen. It's really hard to get the full COC after that. So we had, as a commission, made decisions in the past through discussions not to allow partial COCs. And we also have been very consistent as a commission, even after Corey, in requiring all of our monitoring, because this is for mitigation. And mitigation is important to us because that's what's allowing the applicant to do the work that might impair the resource area. The mitigation is to balance that. And if we're going to end run around that, I have a problem with that. That said, a different point was brought up by David Morgan, which I hadn't thought of before, that there might be an inconsistency with the time frame of the COC and the monitoring, and I would like maybe Nathaniel or somebody to speak to that. Is the time frame of the COC something that we wrote in our regs, or is that from the Wetlands Protection Act? Does anybody know?
So
the time frame of of when they need to ask for a COC, which is
within the 30 days of
within
completion,
the 30 days of completion,
30 days
or 60 days of, whatever that wording is.
Isn't that on the form from DEP?
I think it is. Yeah, maybe that's where it's from. Let me see.
I thought it was just our own standard condition. I wasn't familiar.
Is it our own? Okay.
So if it's our own standard condition, that's something we might want to consider changing, because that is inconsistent with a project that requires 3 growing seasons of monitoring, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
Well,
if it's a WPA condition,
I don't see
I
how
don't know how you deal with that.
I don't see how it's consistent. It only says that they need to, request a COC. And the request, if they're coming in with everything prepared, it's different than giving David a call. David would say, well, no, if you want to go down to, item
Oh, you just froze, Chuck.
9, it says you have 3 years of monitoring.
Or you mean they should just request it and then David would say, come back in 3 years and that satisfies
I
that?
only see that as them actually requesting it, not receiving it.
Okay,
Like a check-in.
okay. I just want to make sure our wording there is not causing an inconsistency with what we're requiring for vegetation monitoring. That's
Oh.
all.
It
Yeah, I
wouldn't
think-
hurt
I
at
think we
all
could look
to
into it.
adjust that wording, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, Susan. Chuck, do you mind if I go next? I was in the stack anyway.
Say that again, David.
I was up next to talk anyway, and I have stuff to say about what Susan said, so you mind if
You'd
I?
like to talk? Go ahead, David.
So the wording around the requirement to file for a COC was put in so that we could enforce having them come in for a COC, which I think is a good idea, since so many are outstanding. And I honestly, I think it's been effective. Like I think we've seen a lot more people come in for COCs under recent permits than we have in recent years. So that's good. I do still think that language should be massaged to line up with the growing season piece. That's perfectly reasonable. I also think that in our standard conditions, just in our permit issuance period, we need to think about what qualifies as mitigation for in terms of plantings, because I would say most of the time what is being monitored isn't per se mitigation. Like the legal term mitigation means a specific thing, and we are not writing permits that say all of the planting on a site is mitigation. So I think there's a little bit of nuance there to straighten out as well. Part of what could be done to address this whole issue is taking another look at the standard condition that requires the 3 growing seasons in the monitoring period to make that an enduring condition. Because if we do that, then it's passing the responsibility. I don't know, maybe this is just a stupid thought. I'm anticipating Nathaniel's response saying that they're going to inherit the permit anyway. It doesn't need to be an enduring condition in order for the new owner to assume responsibility for the monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe that's the case, or maybe it moves the needle a little bit. It says, when we issue a COC, we always say, these are the enduring conditions, the continuing conditions that still apply to the property. We could write that condition to say, this survives the issuance of a certificate of compliance, and when the new owner assumes title, that means that they are necessarily inheriting that responsibility with the permit. So it could be the middle ground between, doing an end run around the conditions as they exist, and doing this partial thing, which I think is also a horrible idea. We should definitely not pursue partial.
So David, just to confirm, you are, in your example, you're issuing the certificate of compliance, but saying that the whatever the planting mitigation or whatever the mitigation is a continuing condition up until the 3 years or whatever we want it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not in favor with that, because I think that there's so many backlogged orders of conditions that don't have certificates of compliance, even with the strength of having this on the title, that we've lost, I'm going to call it leverage, but it's also a condition. It was also part of the reason why we approved the project. But I think that I've been around long enough to know that sometimes people come right in and get their certificate of compliance, and you have a lot of luck with builders because they're flipping over the house to someone who's buying it. And so you get a lot of those, but a lot of people don't understand the process, and they're only going to recognize that when they do refinance or try to sell the house, and then they have to come back to the Conservation Commission. This all goes back to there's no responsibility from the Conservation Commission or the agent to require that the owner, well, in our regulations we just went through that, but in the state, there's no responsibility for the Conservation Commission to require that the certificate of compliance is sought after. I see Brian McBride has his hand up again.
Yeah, I was just curious about Susan's statement. She didn't want to do partial certificates, and I'm wondering whether Alicia's suggestion that you might do an escrow account would be considered a partial, or if that's a solution. I guess from my perspective, you want to have the homeowner have a path to get out of this pickle if they're in the pickle, and it could be a little document that says selling your house with the COC. Step one, talk to the conservation agent. They may issue a comfort level for you, a letter for you if you're on track. Step two, you may wish to set up an escrow account and have a certificate issued based on the escrow account. Some series of steps that would make it easy for a homeowner to resolve this problem.
Sure, Nathaniel Stevens.
Thanks, Brian. I know you're being helpful, but I don't think we want to get into giving advice on real estate transactions and how they should be handled, frankly. So I think that's a little bit outside our lane of advice in terms of making a suggestion for an escrow account.
That was Alicia's.
Yeah, I mean, we could pass that on. We could say, look, this is what I think the best we could say is, look, this is some information we got from DEP. This may or may not help you, and leave it at that. But I don't think we want to start suggesting how to handle how to set up the real estate transaction to get around it. So I think we might get into hot water.
I guess my understanding of what Alicia was saying, the owner would establish an escrow account for the purpose of completing their work. Whatever it is, $5,000 to cover the 7 plants they have to make sure survive. Isn't that what she meant?
She does, but the logistics of the Conservation Commission becoming putting on another hat that's a landscaping hat and a monitoring hat is tough. So typically the condition says you have to give us monitoring reports. This is kind of something you could do in the office. Just review things, figure out if they're dying off or not. It's up to the applicant whether he wants to replace those or wait until the 3rd year and see if he makes whatever percentage we have in the conditions. But I'm also not in favor of adding any more work to the conservation office.
I got you.
Susan, you put your hand down. I don't know if you did that on purpose or.
Yeah, you said what I was going to say, so I'm okay.
Yeah.
I think Mike has his hand up though.
Sure, Mike.
I just wonder if it's not important to differentiate between a partial approval, which we all seem to agree is not what we want, and a comfort letter, because it might be construed as being a partial kind of okay. Well, I may be entirely incorrect in my assumption there. I'm just wondering if that might be construed.
Yeah, we'll have Nathaniel think about that as I go to
Well,
David Morgan.
the letter can't be recorded, so it's not a partial in the formal sense. But yes, I mean, it is effectively operating as some partial sign off, but it's not an official sign off because it's not voted by the commission, it's just by the agent who's giving it. So it doesn't carry the legal significance that a certificate of compliance does.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
On and put on the form that can be recorded at the Registry of Deeds.
Right. I'm just wondering if an applicant might need that clarification when they're looking for some help.
Yeah, so typically I just copy and paste the conditions that are needed, the 3-year monitoring, and put them in there and let them know on such and such a date that they could come back for the Conservation Commission to review the property and sign off on it or not. So they know what that's the comfort that I'm sending applicants, not that everything, nothing more than that, pretty factual. So, and I think that's how you get out of having them misconstrue some sort of agreement that things are fine, because I'm not saying that it looks good right now. It's just that this is what we're waiting for to step in. So this is a conservation discussion right now. And we usually don't open up discussions for the public, but so I just want to make sure that we get all the commissioners' thoughts. So I think David Morgan had his hand up, unless Nathaniel had something to
No,
add to.
David, go ahead. No, I just have a small footnote but go ahead, David. Go for it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So we're talking about comfort letters from the commission to applicants, likely owners of the properties. And what prompted this discussion was Jackie and I looking at materials that we felt were essentially a comfort letter from an applicant to the commission, noting that, the monitoring would be fulfilled. There's an affidavit and a contract and details that were convincing to us, at any rate, that the work would be performed. So I wonder, is that something the commission would entertain in awarding COCs that have similar attachments?
Oh, I was going to speak about 2 other issues, but I would say no, because that's not the certificate of compliance procedure is set out. You need to submit information saying that the work has been done in compliance with, you've got to file after. It's not a, look, we promised to do this, then the commission says, sure, and we'll vote on it. It's a reversal of the process. So I guess, David, if you get blowback by people, I'm happy to talk to people, have them call me. If you don't feel like, if it gets frustrating dealing with closing attorneys who are breathing down your throat, have them call me and I can speak to them, or we can have assistant town council set them straight as well.
Yeah,
on
I
that.
appreciate that. Can I offer just one counterpoint?
Sure.
When we're doing our checklist of whether or not the agent/administrator is going to recommend approval, we have a list of the conditions, and then we have compliant or non-compliant. And in some cases, not all conditions are compliant, but we recommend approval anyway. So there are those instances, and I admit this is one of those conditions that's weightier than others, where we approve COCs where not all conditions are compliant. So I think there's some room for conversation around that, but again, I'm not a voting member, so I'm just leaving that to y'all.
Yeah, I think what I'm seeing is that these scenarios keep coming up and the commission keeps on saying no. And so I would hope that staff is tougher than the Conservation Commission, because it would be great to be on a commission that isn't perceived as being tough. So when the conditions, the certificate of compliance request, I mean, yeah, take care of the laundry at the office. It doesn't have to be aired out in a meeting. That's my advice. But we're not sheepish around here. We'll tell you how we think. And me and Susan have often turned back a lot of these requests in our prep meeting. Nathaniel, I see that your hand is still up.
Yeah, just two things quickly. A reminder that the regulations, DEP's regulations do say that we're supposed to issue a certificate of compliance within 21 days of receipt thereof. And our regulations may need to be tweaked because, as you may recall, we built in some incentive for people to apply for a certificate of compliance by saying if you apply before your time has run out, which is usually 3 years, there's no fee. But if you apply, the next year, it is I've just lost it. Sorry. It's, I think, $100, and then the following year it goes up to $200. So we might need to just tweak that. If we're doing 3 years, we either need to extend the life of a permit, make them 4 years to accommodate our 3-year. It depends on what time of year we're voting on something. So just another small minor thing to keep in mind. But hopefully we've exhausted this subject.
Yes.
I feel exhausted.
Any other final comments from the commission?
Thanks.
Chuck, should we have a small group to just hash out some wording such as Nathaniel is talking about? Because I am concerned about this inconsistency.
Yes, but as long as you bring it back to the commission for our review, whatever. So it sounds like Susan and Nathaniel usually take that on with Jackie and David. So can I ask that you four look at that and then bring it back to the commission when it's ready? And before it's inserted?
What are we bringing back to the commission? I'm not clear.
The wording on the
Doing some
COC.
wordsmithing.
This,
Yeah.
Oh, the
I think the
wordsmithing, okay.
COC, the wordsmithing of the COC, so that if we do approve a project that has mitigation plantings that requires 3 years, and it's a certain time of year, we have to extend it to get those seasons in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you all for hearing this. I know it's protracted and kind of interwoven conversation, but I appreciate you thinking about it.
I appreciate you taking the heat from all those horrible attorneys calling you.
Okay, let's move on. So Elizabeth Island, second on our discussion agenda. Elizabeth Island Conservation Restriction MOU. I saw someone here. Oh, Nicole is here. David, and I know that, so Nicole, hold on. We were reviewing this last week and we decided that we needed another week to look into this. I think that I don't think it's a presentation. So with that, I was wondering if any commissioners have, after their review, have anything to say. And Nathaniel Stevens has his hand up.
Yeah, so just some background on this. My high school friend Nancy works with Nicole, and so when I got a text from Nancy Friday morning after our meeting saying, "What, you guys didn't approve this MOU? We need to talk." So I spoke with her. I got a little more of the background about why Mass Audubon is doing this, which I'm sure Nicole would share if I don't, or if I say it wrong, but apparently Mass Audubon has a new insurance company for their CRs called, I think it's Terra Firma.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And so the insurance company is essentially asking Mass Audubon to formalize arrangements they've already had with co-owners of conservation restrictions. Again, remember we co-hold this conservation restriction on Elizabeth Island, which was granted by the Arlington Land Trust. And I see Nellie Aikenhead from the board is here, probably from the Land Trust. And so it's essentially an insurance company requirement to have the arrangement in writing. And so Nancy asked me, she said, "Do you think it would be helpful to have someone here at the meeting next time you guys discuss it?" And I said, "Yes, that probably is." So Nicole got volunteered, I guess, to appear on this. So I don't know. So Chuck, if you're willing, let her say a few more words in background, because I think that might help the commission get through this.
Okay, yeah, understood. So there is a little bit of a presentation going on here. So Nicole, you can introduce yourself for the record and let us know about this MOU.
So my name's Nicole Marcotte. I'm the Conservation Restriction Program Manager at Mass Audubon. And thank you to Jackie and David for having me come today. There's no formal presentation. I really just wanted to be here to help answer any questions that you all might have. Nathaniel really hit it on the head in terms of we recently enrolled in the Terra Firma Risk Retention Group, which is an insurance group that's led by the Land Trust Alliance. So it's very specific for conservation lands. And we specifically enrolled all of our conservation restrictions into Terra Firma this past year. And as part of that, they do ask that any co-held CRs have a formalized agreement between the co-holders. It's also just great practice in terms of having co-holders for restrictions. I feel that it's more formalized now with newer restrictions, but we found that a lot of our older restrictions didn't have any agreements. And I'm sure, as you know, with new commission members, we certainly know that with new staff members. It's just nice to have something we can refer to and better understanding who's responsible for what. And I know the language can feel a little harsh and static in the agreement itself, but I do just want to come in and acknowledge that our intention isn't to take away any rights of Arlington in terms of monitoring and being a part as a co-holder. It's just really trying to find language of laying out who really is going to be the one going out every year and monitoring. As an accredited land trust, we're responsible to do that on an annual basis, so we're more than happy to. But if we want to discuss that, I'm really just here to help answer any questions you have and hopefully help clarify some of the agreement a bit more.
So Nicole, it's not just monitoring, it's enforcement, and it's deadlines on the commission's responses and other things. So essentially, why is that needed? Because it seems to me that we're here, and you might be as close as Belmont, but you're not here in Arlington. And it seems to me that we would be able to monitor this better. Now, I agree, these things are tough. You have 3 or 4 conservation restrictions. Most towns, no one's going out there anyways. Is this simply for your insurance and you're not going to do this work either? Or, I guess step back a second and just say, since we got this, how many times have you been out there and monitored and did a site visit with notes about this particular Elizabeth Island?
Chuck, we got 3 reports today from 3 of the most recent reports.
So we got 3 today, but we have owned it longer than 3 years, right?
Right. Yes. Yep.
Yep. Back in 2011 is when the CR was recorded. I'm happy to look in our folder, but my assumption is that at least for 10 years that we've been out there monitoring.
That's
In a row.
Yeah, but that's my recollection just from being on the land trust board. Maybe Nellie can chime in as well if she's able, but my recollection is that Mass Audubon.
So I'm not really concerned how many times it's being monitored.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this document has a lot more to do than just monitoring. It's we're allowing the Mass Audubon to take over basically this project, and we're kind of standing back a bit, which, believe me, a lot of situations this would be great. This might be a good idea, but I just wanted to bring those points up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do just want to note too that this isn't set in stone. This can easily be edited. If you all want to be the ones that are the primary in terms of monitoring enforcement, landowner requests, we're happy to discuss that and to step back. We just have to make sure that on the other end that we're just getting reports from you all every year, which I'm sure would be totally fine.
Sure, I thought it would be, so I didn't expect to say this, but since you're bringing it up, why isn't it that we couldn't both be responsible for enforcement?
I think we can be.
Yeah.
We can. It's written that we are. I'm not reading it that we aren't, Chuck. I think and that's what when I spoke with town council 2 weeks ago, the original draft read that way. Town council made some edits. I made some additional edits that, essentially reserves our right to take enforcement. And I think that's still in the draft, because that was the concern of mine at the beginning too, because it did it did come across that way as like, okay, we're delegating our responsibility or our discretion to bring enforcement, and I think we added specific language in here. I'm trying to.
So this is the one I got from Brian when he sent his email, and it just says, whereas Mass Audubon agrees to ensure compliance. It doesn't say Mass Audubon and Arlington. So, I'm not a lawyer, and for the purposes and conditions of the conservation restriction. So they're ensuring compliance. All right. And then the next line just says that in the fullest extent permitted by law, and in accordance with the eligible legislation or any other applicable laws, the Conservation Commission agrees to cooperate with Mass Audubon in ensuring this such compliance. So I thought that was a backseat to someone else doing the compliance. So that's where I was on this.
Yeah, I'm happy to edit that language more, or like I said, with this process, we've been working with probably 8 other partners through the agreement process. All of them look a little bit different just based on the needs. I haven't necessarily had the chance to directly hear your concerns, so I'm happy, that we can work on this more. So
Sure. If the commission allows, I'm going to have Nellie Aikenhead talk, because she's familiar with this situation. Nellie.
Hello, thank you. So I'll be honest, I was here for the previous topic, but I am on the board of the Arlington Land Trust, so I stuck around. So I think I missed our last board meeting, which was just like a couple days ago. So maybe they discussed this, but I haven't heard anything about it. We do hire someone to go out there and monitor. We do enforce. I think we're doing a lot of this stuff, so maybe we should table this discussion and let someone from the Arlington Land Trust be part of it. Like, we do a report every year. We hire someone to go out there. We hire, a monitor, and I don't really know what's behind the rest of it. So,
Okay. Well, thanks for that. I'm going to turn back to the commission. I don't know who had their hand up first, if you just want to speak out, or I would go with Brian McBride.
Yeah, as you know, Chuck, I'm new to all this, so this is really just my impression. When I read the document, I was surprised. It seems the document that I read hands off enforcement to the Audubon Society, and there is a phrase at the very end of it which says the commission doesn't give up its rights under the laws to continue enforcement. But the bulk of the document seemed to be saying that the Audubon Society would be the primary group doing enforcement. I think it's wonderful that they do inspections, and I think that's a really great fit for what they're capable of. It just, on my first reaction to this was, why would we want someone else to do our primary job, which is the enforcement of these regulations? So that's the part that struck me, is maybe we wanted to delete that part and leave it to be monitoring with the Audubon Society, and the Concom would continue with the enforcement.
Sure. And I would just add that that last page where it says that we're handing that off, it says we can retrieve that at any time, except that we would need both parties to agree. So there's the rub. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't get some sort of agreement, but here we are now, and we should get it right now if there's other people that feel the same way. So Susan Chapnick.
I'll pass it off to Nathaniel. I didn't read it that way. About the enforcement. I thought we both had enforcement capabilities. So maybe I'm mistaken. But putting enforcement aside for a minute, I see a duplication of efforts if the Arlington Land Trust is already monitoring and Mass Audubon is monitoring. So that seems silly to me. I think that it looks like Mass Audubon, at least on the most recent one, was monitoring with somebody that's very familiar with I think it was Paul, very familiar with the Arlington Land Trust as well as Elizabeth Island. So I don't understand why there's a duplication there. And personally, I would leave it to the Land Trust because they're in control of this, but I would feel comfortable having Mass Audubon taking over the monitoring so that it didn't have to be duplicated. On the other hand, I thought the enforcement was both parties, so maybe I'm misinterpreting.
Do you mind if I chime in real quick about the monitoring piece?
Mhm.
It would still be required that either Mass Audubon or the town of Arlington would have to monitor, despite Arlington Land Trust making the reports themselves. A landowner can't monitor themselves in the same way that's required as who holds the conservation restriction. So that's kind of more so on their stewardship end and them monitoring their own piece of property, which is exactly what we do for Mass Audubon on our fee land. But in terms of what's required of us as holding the CR, we would still have to do a visit.
Okay.
Nathaniel Stevens.
Can I go after Nellie? I think Nellie wants to follow up with
Oh,
that thought.
sure. Nellie, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that we do not monitor ourselves. We hire a third party who's experienced and to do the monitoring for us.
Okay. I believe
Okay.
it
I
would
think
still be
my
required.
recollection, I thought the land trust at one point, hey, did they give some money to Mass Audubon to do the
Yes,
monitoring? I can't
yes,
remember.
we
So
did.
yeah,
Yes,
so I
we
think
did.
it's
It
that.
might be a different party now, but at one point in time, for sure, we did give money to Mass Audubon to monitor.
Okay. On that, but yeah, I'd agree with Nicole. It's a best practice, and it's a best practice for a holder of a CR to monitor annually, and I think it's maybe even an obligation in the CR itself. Is that there? Yeah, Nicole, I haven't read the CR in a while, but it's pretty standard language. So we have that, there is that legal obligation. So I think we should be very grateful to Mass Audubon that they're willing to do this because we have enough on our plate. And I think, note that the agreement says an important thing. It says this can, blah, 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 blah. This agreement termination, where is this? Termination.
Last page.
Either party may terminate this agreement at any time for any reason, period. So if we're not happy, if Mass Audubon starts taking enforcement or something like that, we can just say we're terminating the MOU. So it's, it's somewhat loosey-goosey, and I'm reading it like Susan. It's not.
Yeah, it seems like it's
our
all going to
rights.
work out. I mean, we're not worried about, this is a nice, good partner, we're not
Right.
fighting here, but I thought it would be a good idea that anyone, if the Conservation Commission wanted to be the leader in an enforcement action, it doesn't read to me that way that we could even step into that position. And maybe the Land Trust feels the same way, that they would like to do the enforcement. I'm not sure they're
They
in that
can't,
position, but
Chuck, they're the owners. They granted the conservation restriction. So it's up to
Okay.
Audubon and the land and
so just the Conservation
who's
Commission.
granted to it to enforce. We would be enforcing against the land trust. The land trust monitors I think the land trust monitors their property because again, that's a good land trust practice, and it ties into being an accredited land trust, blah, blah, blah. So it's a best BMP, essentially best management practice for them to go out and monitor their land to do that report. And I think, respectfully, I think that's a different purpose than Mass Audubon going out to monitor compliance with a CR, because that's different. So there are differences, important differences there. So I would say there's some overlap, but it's not duplication from a legal sense in any way. But we can certainly, I'm happy to revise this and take another stab at this with Nicole and see if we can't come up with some
I'm more than
language.
happy to just clarify that so it's not misinterpreted in terms of the enforcement, because like I said, I think this is more so as a reference point, but we don't want it to feel like we're stepping on your toes in any way. It's like definitely not the implication of wanting to take your responsibilities away. It's just kind of defining like who's going to serve as the primary in some situations. But we've tweaked the enforcement language with other towns as well. and where it's just reads more as like a shared responsibility. So I'm happy to help provide that language and some other versions, because I will say that this one is kind of coming from our first stab that did feel just a little bit more strict and a little more harsh and probably a little bit less in terms of like a partnership than how some of our other ones have panned out. So I'm happy to share those. And like I said, this isn't set in stone, and want it to work for you all too, because you're co-holders as well.
Oh, thanks, Nicole. That would be great if you could send those to
Yeah.
David Morgan. He could distribute them. Is there any other commission members that had something to say about this? I'm not sure if Brian was finished. Mike, David. Okay. So we're gonna look at this again, and we're gonna get some additional information. And so I think that we're finished for tonight about this discussion. So Nicole, thank you for showing up.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Nicole.
Bob. I appreciate it. And I'll probably be chatting with you all soon, but have a great night.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
you
you.
too.
Thank you.
So moving right along on our agenda, we have Sims Conservation Restriction Update. So that would be Nathaniel Stevens.
Update is we had a brief meeting the other day. Some of the people didn't show up, but I got an email update saying that we expect to have a draft of the forest management plan for the Sims Woods completed by October 15th, thereabouts. So I gave Dan Cathcart, who's preparing that, the consulting forester for the property owner, I told him that our meeting dates are on the 23rd. Yeah, and folks, just a reminder to the commission, I realized that I didn't calendar our October meeting dates properly. We're meeting the 9th and the 23rd. So I mentioned the 23rd date to him for October, as well as the 6th as a possibility. Due to my miscalendaring, I'm going to be missing the first part of the meeting on the 23rd, so I might suggest that we go with, on the 6th of November for that, if would be my suggestion, and just give us a little more time, Dan Cathcart time, to get it to people and have enough time for people to review it, because if he gets it to us on the 15th, that gives us just about a week to review it. So,
Okay.
And then they're making some headways on the encroachments. They have estimates for all the work that needs to be done, and the management company is going to is speaking with the 4 or 5 property owners to see if they will cost share some of that.
Nathaniel,
Thanks. Yep.
I just wondered, you said October 9th is a commission meeting?
Is that right? Aren't we 9th and 23rd?
Is that correct?
I believe, right? Not the 2nd,
Yes.
not the 2nd and 16th.
Right,
I think
right.
David just said yes.
Yeah. I double checked the calendar because I screwed up those dates
Okay.
on my calendar. Yeah.
Yom
9th to
Kippur on the 2nd, is that right?
Right? Is that right,
On
David?
the high Jewish holidays.
So it's the 9th and the 23rd for October, because we're avoiding Yom Kippur.
Which is the 2nd?
The
Second,
second,
third?
yeah.
2nd, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's the 1st and 2nd, yeah.
1st and 2nd.
Starts
yeah.
the night before.
Yeah, so just heads up for folks on that. Anyways, so that's the update from Sims. We're meeting again next week to get further updates with everyone. And those are the only updates I have so far. Happy to answer questions.
So Nathaniel, you're recommending that we put this on the agenda for when?
Sorry,
I think it's to
November?
be determined.
November 6th, the first meeting.
November
Tentative-
6th? That's what you're
tentatively
proposing? Okay.
Yeah, and because that will give a week or two if he doesn't make the October 15th date that he promises, and also if I don't make it to the meeting on the 23rd.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
So that's for David or Jackie that's going to follow through with that. So I hope you have a few agendas prepared in advance, and this should go on the November 6th agenda, so we don't forget. Except me and Susan are allowed to forget, so it's going to be on you. So
Oh,
don't
I never forget.
No, I'm just saying, make a note.
Yeah.
So we don't, so it comes up in the prep meetings. Next on our list is number 4, which is the Water Bodies Working Group update.
Nothing new. We're meeting next week to discuss a number of things.
Okay. CPA liaison, Brian McBride.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how to handle this exactly. I was hoping, as we discussed in the last meeting, that we might submit as Concom a request for CPA money for the year, which would be an augmentation to the work David is doing with the urban wilds for the Concom properties. Because if we don't submit now, we won't get any money all next year, right, for the coming 18 months or so. And that would maybe challenge us in terms of executing on some of the things that I had in mind in terms of basic amenities at Concom properties. The problem is the due date for the submission is October 3rd, and we won't have another meeting to review any kind of proposal. David and I are going to talk tomorrow about this project, but I'm not sure, David, I don't know if you have any different feeling that we're going to be able to come up with a proposal unless David has something already on the back burner that you all could review. And if you would consider reviewing something by email or blessing a submission, I just think it's a shame that if we could get, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 to put some signage up or other amenities for our Conservation Commission lands, or do some improvements in entrances, et cetera. Like, there's a list of things that I'm trying to put together. I'm sure David can help tomorrow, that we could, you know, spend the money on with good impact. But I'm just feeling squeezed by the time schedule right now.
So is that David Morgan before Nathaniel? I'm not sure. Yeah. So David Morgan, can you answer a couple of Brian's questions? Are you available?
I don't have anything up my sleeve that's pre-prepared. I was waiting to meet with Brian tomorrow and put together details.
It sounds like you're willing to give a stab to this. You're gonna have enough time to see if this will work and put an application together.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna talk tomorrow. So, but again, it doesn't align with the commission's meeting schedule to vote to approve, but I wonder how you all want to handle that.
All right. Well, I'm sure that Nathaniel or Susan will have something in mind to say about how we can approve this prior to maybe after the fact approval. I'm not sure. Let's go with Nathaniel Stevens.
Well, thanks. Well, that's my question. Do we need to, I can't remember at what stage in the CPA process we need to actually vote on a formal application. Is this the point?
So this is just the preliminary application, and it can be quite vague, you know, enhancements of property features on conservation to do this benefit for the public. And then there's the final proposals will be due sometime in January.
Oh, okay.
So don't you?
I would think we could do a conceptual, and I think we did this before, is just vote, you know, you and David just tell us now what the concept is, as you've been doing. We vote and say that's fine, then you guys do the preliminary application. I think I think we do review the actual wording of the final application, is my vague recollection. I think Susan can correct me if I'm wrong. So
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So we've done this before where we've
Oh,
given, you know, approval on a concept
yeah.
because this isn't the final application.
Right.
But the final application, we would need to review as well as the, you know, the budget in it, you know, to make sure we think it's reasonable. The and I am totally supportive of putting this together with David. My only concern, not concern, but coordinate, and of course David knows, is we already have some CPA funds for the Wilds Initiative and land initiatives, you know, and just make sure that you're not overlapping. I mean, enhancing them and you know,
Not
using them as a stepping board.
Yeah.
And associating with them, which is great, because I think CPA would appreciate that, that we're building on those, but we don't want to do the same thing.
Yeah, amen.
Okay.
All right. So do we have a vote?
I'll make a motion to support the application as Brian, or the preliminary application for the items that Brian listed, and that he and David will work out along those lines.
David and Susan.
Could you read those into the record? Brian?
Brian,
Oh,
yeah.
the
Thank
things
you.
that I just,
Because the
yeah.
chat doesn't necessarily get captured.
Sure.
Yeah.
So some of the things that might be, and every property is different, right? Some of these won't be appropriate at all, but adequate parking, welcome sign, information on who funded the project, a site map, a trail map with colors matching trail blazes, trail rules, dogs, bikes, hours, hunting, fires, noise, etc. Trail edges to encourage staying on paths, designated trails for handicap, elderly, youngsters, habitat education panels along the trails, historic education panels along the trails, benches or rest spots, trail enhancements for steep areas such as steps, muddy areas such as boardwalk, handicap access, bird nesting boxes. Now we're getting into random ideas, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, and I'm
Well,
sure
thank
you'll
you.
cull that down a little with David Morgan.
Yeah.
You know,
I did-
and dovetail it with other projects.
Yeah, will do.
Yeah.
I did reach out to the MACC to see if they had like the master list of the ideal site, and they didn't.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
So did this include a sign that said the name of the conservation property, or does it, and a
Yes.
kiosk?
That would be the welcome sign in my mind, Chuck. Yeah, a kiosk is a
Okay.
great idea, though. Great point.
Okay.
And we'll put the chair's name in large letters, but
That's tradition.
yeah, of course. I was gonna say, Brian, one thing, the trail rules might conflict a little bit, or should already be covered with our conservation, the
We
Conservation
have rules,
Commission's regulations, which we have
Okay. Oh,
for our conservation lands. I think there should,
Mm.
hopefully there's a link on the website. We haven't revisited those in what, David, 15 years,
Long time.
20 years, so.
Yeah, we're not-
So I'm wondering
trail
with
rules, so maybe just
we're making
eliminate.
signage, but so the kiosk allows you to print signage and maybe laminate it and put it up there. You don't have to spend, I mean, all the kiosks should be enclosed, right?
Yeah,
It's
okay,
easier.
yeah.
It takes so long to order a sign when something comes up that it was like an, oh yeah. So if there's a
Yeah.
kiosk, it's closed, and we can just, I mean, maybe if there's no laminator within the town hall, maybe that could be part of the request, because
Yeah.
that's essential in my world.
Lamination
know.
is easy.
Yeah. But if they don't have the machine, it's,
Well, I have
Yeah.
one.
That's a
there
great
you
point.
go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So do I need to revise my motion, or is that?
Also
should
like
say
to
as
say
amended.
about-
Wait, I think
I'd like
David
to-
White had his hand raised though, before we
Okay.
revise
I'm
it.
gonna
Oh,
say something about
David, yeah.
maybe vegetation, maybe
Sorry.
invasive control and native plants, just to include that as a possible.
Great point, David. Yeah.
Okay.
I know
Okay,
there's a super complex rule set about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable for CPA money, and sometimes invasive plants removal don't fall under
Maybe new
maintenance,
plants,
so
though, I just
therefore
think of
excluded.
plain trees or something like that.
Right, but new construction might be okay. So maybe planting natives would be okay. We'll have to get a ruling from
You
somebody.
think about living things, not just the constructed things.
Good point. Really good point.
All right, Nathaniel, you're gonna give us a stab at redoing
just say it's
your-
amended as discussed.
Yeah, the amendment, I amend my motion as discussed.
Okay,
Okay,
I
great.
second.
Great. Mike Gildersgame,
Yep.
David White,
Yes.
Brian McBride,
Yes.
Nathaniel Stevens,
Yes.
Susan Chapnick,
Yes.
and Chuck Trunny says yes. All right. That was great. David McBride, thank you very much for doing this.
Brian
Susan and David, well, it was right. Brian
Morgan.
McBride and David Morgan and Susan Chapnick. Yeah. They're going to be on it for the next couple of weeks. So it's Sarah Alfaro Franco does the tree liaison report, the tree committee liaison report. She's not here tonight, so that brings
I
us to
think I see
Poets Corner.
Susan Stamp might be on the tree committee. I don't know if you're willing to
Oh,
take.
I didn't realize
her.
that. Do you want to take over Sarah's spot here, Susan? Give it a little
I would
try
love
on
to.
the Conservation Commission. Maybe this is something that's going to be, fulfilled later on?
Well, I
in the
feel
future?
like the Conservation Commission and the Tree Committee are pals. So we,
Absolutely.
we're brothers from the same mother, so to speak.
Mm.
But we, what I actually wanted to, I saw that Sarah wasn't here. So I thought that I might be able to hop in and talk about the meeting in a box that the tree committee just submitted to the AMP-UP committee for the master plan, the comprehensive plan. That is it's our ideas for what we'd like to see in the comprehensive plan, and our vision for the town. And I just, I wanted to share just a couple of things with you about what's in the document, if that's okay. Because like I said, I feel like our two committees are very compatible, and I have a feeling you'll probably agree with it. And so in the section, would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay. So in the section of what issues or topics do members think will be important to the town to consider in the next few years, we have recognizing and elevating the role of trees within the town, establishing the tree committee as essential town infrastructure in the public and private landscape. Trees and canopy are required aspects of development planning, similar to roads, sidewalks, streets, and fire hydrants. So that's our fundamental approach that we would like to see the town take in the future. So for example, in talking about collaborations with you guys, with the redevelopment board, which we do a lot of work with the redevelopment board, that encouraging the boards to recognize trees as essential town infrastructure when implementing any development goals, planning, new zoning bylaws, and planning for the survival of trees in all projects where trees are involved, such as park and rec projects and so on. And then finally, it's the same thing. It was just expressed a little differently depending on the section, but basically in the section of what does your ideal Arlington look like in 10 to 15 years? And our answer is our town's urban forest, which is made up of all trees in town, private and public, is recognized, excuse me, and managed as an essential public good, like clean air and clean water, is treated as town infrastructure like roads, sidewalks, streetlights, and fire hydrants, and is incorporated into all town planning and integrated into all aspects of town operations. And that furthermore, every resident enjoys the benefits of a healthy tree canopy in their neighborhood through the establishment of tree canopy coverage minimums across Arlington. And we're hoping that we can also get an urban forest planner in the planning department. We'd love to do that, someone to work alongside David. So I just wanted you to know that that's kind of what that's where we're at, and that's been our philosophy behind our recent in the last few years, our initiatives for changes to the zoning laws, and sort of that's kind of the principle that we carry with us as we go forward doing tree stuff. So
Sure, thanks. Any questions for Susan?
No, I would just say, if I may, Chuck, that sounds very idealistic and wonderful in terms of the role of trees in the town. And I commend the tree committee for that. So go forth and the committee.
thank
Yeah.
you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
All right. So on September 13th, me and Susan met down at Poets Corner. It's like Shelley Road. We parked on Shelley Road and we walked over to, I walked towards Dowd Ave. And we were in the park, and there's a hill, and you can look down on the construction work. And what we noticed, and I guess we walked around the edges too, and what we noticed that they had used bend blocks, like precast interlocking huge cement blocks to kind of create a depot storage area, almost like a
Sorry,
fortress.
what construction are we talking about? What project?
So this is across the street from St. Camilla's. This is a site that we weren't told about, that I noticed when we drove past it. It looks like it's a huge storage area or a huge staging area for gravel and pipe, and you know, I guess road tailings and things like that. And mini trucks go in and out, large tractor trailers,
Wow.
every day they're staged down there. They sit down there. And so I sent a text to Susan and the group, the group is usually myself, Jackie, David, Susan, and said, "What's going on here?" And we talked about it. And me and Susan weren't satisfied with just, like the armchair kind of evaluation that had happened on this site through staff, and we were more curious about it. So we went down there on the 13th just to see, this is a big operation. There's a lot of things moving around. And those bin blocks are there for two reasons. One, to make sure that no one everyone knows the limit of work, but they're also pushing material up against it so they can scoop it and put it into the trucks. And so it's several rows high. It doesn't prevent water from going through it.
Sorry, can we get I'm still confused about where we are. Can you share a screen? I can share my screen. Can someone point to where?
Maybe David
what
can
we're
do
talking about?
something. He had some pretty good
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good
no, it's
aerial.
next to
Yeah,
post.
so
Whose material is that? And
So
what
this is the
are-
same spot that was reviewed under an ORAD for the Belmont. So this was exact same kind of, this is where the town stores the snow. This is the same spot. I don't know if they still store snow there, but they used to do that. So,
So who's doing this? The town?
no, private contractors,
This
I
is
guess
the-
they have
This
Huh.
is owned, the property is owned by the church,
yeah.
St. Camilla's Church.
Oh,
So the
this is
archdiocese, yeah.
this is the parking lot area that was degraded at Poets Corner, right abutting the wetland, what we think are the wetlands.
Right.
The
they-
ORAD was never completed. The
Yeah.
NRAD was never completed.
So the concern is, did they expand this area or did they not? And so that's why me and Susan kind of went down there and put some eyes on it. And what David just drew out, I'm assuming that's David that did this, is pretty much what we saw. It goes right up to the tree line, right up to that path that looks like a paper street to me. It goes right up to the next road. And so that's pretty much what they have. So anything within that red area is part of this construction site now. It's surrounded by these bin blocks. There's a couple of gaps in those bin blocks. I don't know why they're there. One is actually so much rain and whatnot. The day we were there, it hadn't rained for a while. There was still kind of muddy material is coming out of their site and going into the wooded area. So our request was to tighten up those areas with erosion control. And I think we sent that was like Monday that I sent that note to David Morgan. At the end of the day, I have to say that I was surprised that the commission didn't look at this, but after reviewing it, I believe it was mostly on the disturbed area, unless anyone had concerns that some of that disturbed area was fill on top of a wetland. So David, before we go to the commission, can you let me know if you've reached out to the contractor and asked him to take care of those, there was one or two areas
I just saw
that
your
needed some
email.
additional bin blocks or some erosion control to prevent that.
I just
So
saw
that'll
their
happen
email for
tomorrow,
the
right?
first time
Yeah.
this morning, Chuck, so I have not reached out to them yet. I can do so with Jackie tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Yeah.
Susan, I don't know if you want to add anything, but you can handle the questions. All right. I'll let Susan handle the questions. So go ahead and ask.
Sorry, Susan, were you gonna
Okay.
add something, anything? Or can I go?
No, you
Okay.
can ask question. I mean, I was concerned about water and sedimentation runoff from the site from these big cement blocks. It's pretty impressive the amount, the piles that they have, the equipment they have, the pipes that I mean, it's a huge construction site.
Big operation.
And some of the piles are so high, they're way above the concrete blocks that they've put together as a wall. So, but I don't know exactly where the wetlands are. So it may be fine that all this is, within their property. But I think that at least they should shore up those concrete block walls, where they have gaps. Yeah. And Chuck, didn't you take a picture from the, our side, the town side, so you could show them kind of the extent of this? Or do you not have that available?
Oh, it's in the email. So
Okay.
David could
I
put
don't know if
that
David
up
can
if
find
he
that while
if he
Nathaniel's
wanted
asking
to.
a question.
It's just easier for him to do
Yeah.
that.
We must still have a copy of that application that was filed by Belmont Hill School, right? How does that comport? I also brought up the GIS, and I don't know, David, maybe you can hit the wetlands layers or go do the wetlands GIS, because it does look like there's mapped wetlands nearby, right to the north. I guess it's a question of how far. I'm trying to find the other layer to get the.
Yeah, so David did that,
mapping.
and it looks
Okay.
like from David's point of view that it's far enough away.
Mm.
But it's hard for us to know exactly because we don't trust that wetland.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so-
No, we
But
had
yeah,
issues with
but it
yeah.
looks like it's probably far enough away that, if we shore up these walls they put in, maybe that's enough. But it is a huge construction site. I was floored
Yeah.
when I actually went down there.
Yeah, so so for me, I was always concerned about the depression that's just behind this area that's not flagged, and wonder, what's going to come out of that. And I had also, there was a strange little puddle, and if David brought up the aerial that he showed me, he doesn't have to. We can just try to find my picture, but there's always a puddle like right in the middle of this disturbed area. And I think it's very curious that there's always something there. I think if the commission did look at this, and we don't need the commission to look at this kind of stuff, but let's say the commission did look at it, I just think it would be an erosion control project. They probably wouldn't have been so close to that tree line as they are. There wouldn't be gaps in it. The bend blocks would have some sort of, so things can get under those and they don't really hug the ground. So maybe some mulch stock in front of that, at least on two sides, the wetland sides, and then some silt sacks in the storm drains if there are any on Dowd Ave. I think that and possibly a condition for street sweeping, which may be happening because the street didn't look that bad when I was in and out of that site. So I don't know, maybe I'll put up the picture. Hold on a second.
Is it over a half acre or acre? Will they need a NIPD's construction permit?
Well, that's a good
That's
question.
interesting.
I didn't
Is that
even think of that.
Yeah, is that a measuring tool there you have, David?
I'm wondering if it's even relevant, but do we know where they're putting that construction, what they're building with it, and where they're using the material?
No, it doesn't look like it's for on-site. It looks like it's storage, but I don't know. David, do you know?
I have been told it's MWRA.
Ah.
Yeah, the MWRA is very responsive if you send any kind of letters to them.
Well, it's
All
a
right.
subcontractor, but yeah.
But
It's
still, yeah.
41,000.
Gonna do water line.
square feet.
On 41, you're getting close to an acre, right? Acre's 42 something something.
42,000.
Yeah, I mean, you could, yeah, it's 41 and a half at that, so.
Wow.
pretty damn close.
So do you see those blocks in the back? Those are what we were talking about, the concrete blocks,
And
that they've set up as a wall, yeah.
And that's also the gap.
And there's one of the gaps, there's two gaps in the back.
Which
But
way
you
is
see
it?
those piles, and then I don't know if there are any other pictures, but I mean, there are lots of piles and then lots of pipes. It makes sense that it's MWRA, they look like they're water, you
That's a
know,
big pipe, yeah.
some big pipes.
Hmm.
All right,
Happy to
It's,
get in touch with them and say, put the erosion controls in. You know, they were concerned about it because we had reached out in the first place when they started work and wanted to review. And when I looked at the ANRAD and heard about their staging, it seemed like they were outside of even the suggested jurisdictional area with the science that we have on hand. It's the most recent evaluation. So, you know, I think they'd be perfectly amenable. It's an easy fix if what we're requesting is erosion control, and we can take care of it tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thanks.
thanks.
Yeah. Don't forget the silt sacks
Mhm.
in the storm drains if there are any. And that might even go out on Concord Ave. I don't know where that discharges to, but I would just prefer to have.
I think to that wetland. I hate to tell you.
Well,
Yeah.
it seems like Concord Ave is lower than this site. So it's, unless, you know, they can do anything, I don't know. But anyways, I would certainly get anything on Concord Ave and these also with the silt sacks, and then just make sure they're sweeping things up. All right. And Susan, you want to go back out there again? Did you want to meet? David was trying to set up a site visit.
I don't think it's necessary because I feel that I got a good understanding of what needs to be done. So as long as David follows up with them, I'm okay with that.
All righty. Well, that
Thank
was it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
How are you
Okay,
guys
let's,
doing on Town Day? I'm missing Town Day, but you guys have enough people signed up?
I'll
We
be
do.
there.
Yeah, we
Chuck will be
Jackie's
there.
Yeah, I miss it.
yeah.
I'm there.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out of
I
town.
think we're good. All right, so we're
Enjoy.
signing off. It's 8:30, approximately 8:29.
Woohoo!
No.
Woo, nice.
Awesome.
All right, thanks
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Motion adjourned, unanimous.